At the Bodega, you don't have to settle for an egg and cheese on a roll or a bag of chips.
We'll grab 2 cans of chickpeas at $1.39 each.
You can eat good and cheap if you know what to look for.
I think we probably need 2 of these, yeah.
Leanne Brown wrote the book on good and cheap, and she's got a lot to say about sourcing healthy ingredients, even when your resources are looking a little thin.
How easily can you access food, and particularly fresh food?
For Danny and Andrea, the lean times have meant relying on government assistance.
EBT is kind of like one of the few bright points of being homeless, because at the end of the day, you know that you have food.
It's all about how frugality, plus a large dollop of creativity, ends up being a go-to recipe. There's really only one recipe at Jaffa Deli, and it's a neighborhood treasure.
When I come in, they just know hot wings and fries. That's all I get.
For decades, it's what everyone's ordered at Jaffa.
The chicken is so good over here, it make you want to smack your mama.
This week, the people and the stories on the menu at the Bodega. No carbs, no sugar. J-Lo challenged me and I accepted. 2 boiled eggs for breakfast, salad with a can of sardines for lunch, egg whites with spinach for dinner. No Cheez-Its at my desk, peanut M&Ms before the gym, or booze at any time. Cutting out carbs may shrink J-Lo's waistline, but it can also expand your mind if you think about the luxury of excluding food to ready for swimsuit season. Food insecurity is the disruption of food intake or eating patterns because of lack of money or other resources. Not knowing where your next meal is coming from is a reality for over 1 million New York City residents who don't weigh their rice and beans dinner against fitting into their skinny jeans. 1.2 million people in the city that gave the world Nathan's hot dogs, Junior's cheesecake, and Pizza Rat, for God's sake, going to bed hungry. Our city's food insecurity rate is 12% higher than the national average. And you'll really lose your appetite when you learn that in 2018, 34% of food pantries and kitchens in New York City were forced to reduce their portion size, limit hours of operation, or turn people away due to lack of resources. But there are dedicated people fighting against food insecurity on multiple fronts, creating spaces that foster community and fill bellies, sharing how to sustain deliciously on a few dollars a day with ingredients from La Bodega, and breaking the stigma of EBT and the supremacy of the egg and cheese. It's all food for thought as we go in on Eats.
Best-selling cookbook author, Leanne. Welcome to our bodega. You come in?
It's good.
So,
I think we're gonna be making like a chana masala today, which is basically like a curried chickpea. So basically, these dried beans, lentils are a much better value if you have the time to spend on them. And so it can be something, it can seem like, oh my God, 2-3 hours to boil these beans, but it's something that can just kind of go on in the background, despite having had this mini lecture that we probably should get canned, so that we can just have them ready to go, because I don't have a pot of already cooked chickpeas at home right now.
So chickpeas, a recipe is emerging. We'll grab 2 cans of chickpeas at $1.39 each. So where did the idea for good and cheap come from?
It was actually my thesis project for my master's degree at NYU. And I really just thought something like this should exist. I think that sort of budget cookbook cookbooks, at least at the time, and I mean I still think that, are just like it's really an underserved audience. You know, there's this attitude of like, you get what you get, and I just thought like, man, I know how to cook, and I know that it's really, really inexpensive to cook delicious food, and that that's accessible. And so I just wanted to create something that looked and felt as beautiful as any of the other gorgeous cookbooks out there, but just happened to be sort of inexpensive.
Do we need one or two?
I think we probably need 2 of these, yeah.
Okay. So what is the strategy walking through the door when you come into a place that's
local? I
local?
usually try to have some kind of a plan, like at least a loose plan, but with like the flexibility of sort of knowing, oh, we have coconut milk, that's always nice.
Some oranges.
Okay, so we're definitely going to want some onions and garlic.
A bag of onions, sure you the whole bag.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. But yeah, I think that's all we're going to need today. Oh, we have big avocados.
Oh, yeah, I see a Mexican avocado. This one still has the tree on it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need anything else? So we're good to go. All right, Nelson, ring us up. Be kind.
You never know.
Okay, 1413. Gracias, señor.
So we're gonna make the chana masala now.
Yes, we're on the other side.
Here we go. I'm gonna see how easy this is. So we'll start with chopping some onions.
What is the proper term to describe the situation in a lot of Brooklyn communities where they just don't have access? Yeah.
Well, it depends who you talk to. I mean, I think, yeah, from an academic perspective, I think it's still, food desert is sort of a useful term, meaning, and it's changed over the years. I think it comes down to you don't necessarily have access within, I think it's usually about like 15 to 20 minutes of your home, whether that's in a community like ours, it would be walking distance. In a more rural community, it might be driving distance. Yeah. It depends on the community, but it's sort of about how easily can you access food, and particularly fresh food. Yeah. Some type of fresh food. The thing about this project is like I don't think anyone should have to eat on $4 a day. I think that sucks, to be honest. Yeah. Like if it were up to me, it would be a totally different number. But it is a reality for so many people, and so given that reality, you know, what can we do to sort of to be empowered in that situation? I think it's like learn how to cook and become comfortable and become flexible. Have a few recipes that you really know well. That you can get most of the ingredients for, and you're sort of better set up.
So for people who are living life, going to the bodega where they get the majority of their food, what is a basic thing? Because a lot of people have never even heard of like a chana masala kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
You put chickpeas.
Well, so it's like curried chickpeas, or I think lentils and beans and those kinds of things are a really, really great place to start and sort of become comfortable, because they're a great source of protein. Right. They're a really nice sort of center of a meal. A lot of the recipes in Good and Cheap are sort of by necessity and because I think it's fun and it creates variety. They're vegetarian because meat is fairly expensive. Yeah. And it's not that you have to live completely without meat or anything, but when it's the absolute center of every meal, it's going to be more expensive. So we have onion and garlic here, and then so these aren't usually things you can get at the bodega, spices, but if you have a regular grocery store anywhere near you, or any sort of like ethnic market, usually there's some good spice deals. And again, if you're missing one of these, it's okay. So this is about, I think that's like
a pound
tablespoon.
of butter.
That's not a pound of butter. It's like a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, and let that melt. And then, yes, we're going to add the cumin seeds.
Could I use that big tub of margarine that my grandma used to make?
You definitely can.
So it's not like a fancy thing to...
You for sure can. So now we're going to, I have the exact measurements in the recipe, but I usually just kind of go like that. So about like that. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, there. Can you smell it? The cumin. Boom. And so now we're going to add all this onion. And I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit now.
Yeah. Now I can really smell it. The cumin, the onion, and the butter.
if we look at that bodega, all of the cheapest stuff was the stuff that had the least done to it. You know, the rice, it's uncooked, the dried beans, like the more sort of whole and basic the food, the less expensive it was for the most part.
Right.
Things that have something down to it, even the canned tomatoes, are a little more expensive because they have, because they have that roasted garlic in them already. These are sort of a fancier kind, and so anything like that is going to cost more. And so if you can sort of get comfortable with things at their most basic level and know how to bring them together in really simple ways, you can get by, and you can actually have food that you really enjoy. There's our timer. I think that's the rice saying might be close to ready. It's looking fluffy.
Rice.
All right. And how much of that garlic do you want to add? All of it? Okay, do it.
All
do it.
Of the garlic. Bam! Is that show still on the air? Is Emerald alive?
So now we're going to add a little bit of, I like to use this. This isn't essential, but I really love smoked paprika. It just adds a little bit, obviously, beautiful color and a sort of smoky note. I love to just keep it because I do a lot of vegetarian cooking. It adds a smoky element that you can't get that easily without meat and turmeric. And so we're going to add quite a lot of this. The coriander, I think like a full tablespoon, maybe a little bit less. But yeah, it's really a spice heavy dish. But it's because we're using such simple ingredients other than that, so you want that flavor and the beautiful turmeric. Gorgeous color. Look at that. We've got our red, brown, and yellow. So just dump that in.
Oddly enough, it smells like there's bacon cooking. Do you get that?
It's because of the paprika.
Chickies.
Chickpeas.
So these are gonna lay in wait.
Lay in wait, exactly.
Ooh, the spice hit me at the end.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, not in a bad way. It got all smoky and.
I would add maybe just like a cup or so of water usually, but since we got it, coconut milk. Yeah. And so now we'll just kind of let that simmer until it thickens up a bit and all the flavors kind of melt together, and we will be done. This is looking incredible. Can you see how the oil from the coconut is starting to separate a little bit? Delicious.
This is the fruits of our labor.
Yeah.
A steaming pile.
And we got the addition of the egg from your pocket.
I never go anywhere without a boiled egg. Everyone who knows me.
I really like.
So I never go anywhere without a boiled egg.
Both added something to this dish.
So that is a thing. So I'm looking at this. There's the two of us. We also have 2 crew members here who are enjoying some Chinese.
And we still have leftovers.
And there's
for
still
at least 2 more.
Pot. So our total when we left Nelson's today was about $14 that we paid.
Pretty good.
And this is gonna feed 4 people at least twice.
Yeah.
And we've still got onions and garlic to boot.
Like $1.75 a person. And we still have onions and garlic left over. I really like the coconut. That was a great addition.
That was our splurge. And we
garlic
were
extravaganza plus coconut.
That's really good.
I love it.
We are at 462 Halsey Community Farm on a lovely early spring day.
Yes.
How does this intersect with your professional life, Ray?
What I've come to realize is that the need for food access in the community was a great one, and to have varied sources of food in the community was definitely needed. And so even though there's a bodega there are grocery stores all around, there's not a lot of available fresh produce in the area. If people need to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, then we need to look at what people have historically called alternative food economies in order to do that. A community garden, farm stands, farmers markets. A year-round farmers market would be so great in this community. East New York, for example, has over 65 community gardens.
Yeah.
People thought, well, the government's not looking out for us. Our leaders aren't really looking out for us.
Right.
we have to do for self.
So they took something that was at best benign neglect
Exactly.
and turned it into a community resource,
Exactly.
like where we're standing right now.
Exactly. What I do in my position is look at the way that the communities have resisted against that and created something new.
I love that historical perspective, because some people might take a less informed view and say, oh, this is something that they made up, or this is created, or even look at it as a sign of gentrification through some lenses.
Right.
But this is historically what people have done if you
Absolutely.
take the long view. This
Absolutely.
is not something new.
We found an article in 1908 in the Brooklyn Eagle that talked about a cooperative grocery organized by the Negroes, it said. And, you know, that was an example of how Black people were organizing for better food in the community and historically have been doing that. And so we organize from that perspective, that cooperatives are not an exercise of a gentrified community where gentrifiers want to respond to the lack of food in the community, that Black communities have been thinking about different ways to organize to get better food in the community, and this is just another one of them.
So I'm from Fort Myers, Florida. I was fully out since I was 15. So I was like, girl, sister, honey, Mary, like nothing's gonna hold me back. I basically knew when I became an adult at 18 that I would have to provide for myself. And I felt like the EBT program was a way for me to eat. I was renting a room with a trans couple, and they kind of took me in, let me stay there and pay rent. And that's sort of how I first got EBT, and I got acclimated to the system. They had a 3-month-old daughter, and like they were just struggling to make ends meet, and 8 months had gone by, and I was sustaining myself, but I was slowly like running out of options as far as like career. How am I gonna live? You know, my mother had passed away like 4 months earlier, and it was just a lot. So for me, I knew that the opportunity wasn't really where I was. It was in a bigger city. And you know how they say, follow the money? So I did. Cross country. I love New York. Always fell in love with the idea of New York, the fact that you could be a rebel. Like, they have such a mix of people here. For the most part, I was on the Upper West Side. There's a shelter there that I stayed at until I got my apartment. But I was pounding the pavement. I was doing the best I could. EBT is kind of like one of the few bright points of being homeless, because at the end of the day, you know that you have food. You know that you have something to barter. A lot of people barter with food stamps, and it sort of got me out of a few rough patches because I just didn't have enough on me when I first started, and I had suitcases, and like you have to pay for train metro. You have to make every appointment. You have to run around the city and like exhaust yourself and then try to eat in the meantime. EBT, it's sort of like a debit card that only certain places accept, like delis, grocery stores, and as of recently, farmers markets. To receive EBT benefits, you have to qualify for SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. In New York City, the max amount one person can receive is $192 a month. The income caps for SNAP eligibility in New York are strict. For a single person to qualify, they need to make under $16K a year. This can create challenges for people when they're choosing their work, not wanting to make too much and lose their eligibility. When I was homeless, I would have to get jobs that were off the books so I could keep my benefits. It became more and more difficult to make ends meet. I will say that maybe like 6 out of 10 people that I knew that were on EBT that were trans women were also doing sex work. Sometimes my roommate in the Bronx needed like 20, 30 bucks, or she was short, and she had EBT too, but we would spot each other when we needed to. So that's kind of how we got by for a lot of it. Because we were doing sex work, so it's like, if a date doesn't come, or if a date like backs out, you still have to eat, like you still have to do what you gotta do, like. When I was living in the Bronx, I met this beautiful girl who was a friend of a friend. I'd never heard of her before, or at least as far as I knew. I was like, Andrea, like, who is that? I could pretty much already tell that like we were gonna probably like each other. We started living together about a year ago. Andrea and me were just trying to figure it out, like figure it all out, figure out living together, figure out holding down jobs. I was applying for SSI, so like things were tough. I basically relied on EBT throughout all last winter because it was so hard to try and like manage like a monthly food budget when everything is so expensive and like only one of you works. It's even harder, I think, managing as a couple. So I took what I didn't use, and I would definitely like cook meals for us. Because either way, when it's your family, you understand you can't really afford to go without. I haven't lived here that long, but I do love Brooklyn in the sense that there's way closer options. It wasn't all big chain supermarkets. You know, you have co-ops, you have obviously like Food Bazaar. Having lived it as a kid, I sort of learned how to like make things stretch. Obviously pasta is one thing, a lot of pasta, a lot of rice and beans. What else? Breakfast burritos. Huge fan of breakfast burritos. I would definitely say stick to the basics as much as possible. I think you'll sustain yourself more if you have a lot of smaller meals rather than like, I'm gonna sit down at a table and have lunch, because who has time for that? Usually most people are working, you know. This is a city where anything can happen, and I shudder at the thought to think of like anything that could happen or a complication, and then we're surviving on EBT for a while again, you know? And we've kind of gotten to the point where we have been able to take care of ourselves and we have a system down. But it is so easy to fall off that horse, and it's easy to lose it.
Instinctually, I'm like trying to catch the crumbs, and then it sort of became like hero worship in a way, where I felt very Grecian because I'm like beholding the bowl to the queen.
Thank you. I'm gonna. You know, these aren't half bad. No, they're really good. You're the best.
How could a supermarket or more supermarkets not be the answer if there's food apartheid? It seems like a supermarket is the answer.
It would seem as if it is, but I would say close to 80% of the food in a supermarket are processed. The outer aisles of a supermarket, that's where all the fresh fruits and vegetables and the dairy is. So it's not, you're not incentivized to buy those things. Yeah. So if we're talking about something that's responding to public health issues such as obesity, diabetes, you know, any diet-related illnesses, supermarkets tend not to be the answers because they aren't incentivized to sell you those produce. In fact, fresh fruits and vegetables are called specialty items. They're not incentivized even by the government. They're not subsidized by the government. And so the things that are subsidized by the government are corn and soy and wheat, you know, things that make it into the processed food. So from the very top to the very small, our food system is broken.
chicken is so good over here. I mean, you make you want to smack your mama. It's good. I'm telling you, the chicken is good. I'm not joking. You know, been coming here since I was a kid here. You know, I live around here. You know, and this is the best one where they got the best chicken. I don't know how they got it so good like that, but it's their special ingredient. It's the best chicken. Gotta try it. You gonna like it.
I am a regular at y'all place. The food is good. They're known for their chicken, and it's right around the corner from where I live. They know my order because at least once a week, I've come in and ordered the same thing, so they know automatically when I come in.
I mean, it stand out for me because it's like right next to the train station, so it's like right here. Quick stop before work, get a little something to drink or something.
As soon as we get out, come straight over here, grab something, head over to work, on the way to the train, last minute, pull up right here, grab what you need. They got some good chicken, Most of the time, I look if it's clean, the hospitality, you know, not, you know, cutting their eye at us, looking in there like we about to steal something.
Perfect service.
Everything good over here.
My favorite thing for me is the hot wings. So the hot wings or like the sandwiches is really good. And the chicken. When I come in, they just know hot wings and fries. That's all I get. And blue and ranch. The vibe in here, like it's just not like every other bodega. Like it's more like family.
I've been coming here at least 30 years. Ever since they've been here. I've been in the neighborhood 54 years. You know the old man? That's my man. Everybody that have been polite and good with me. I can only speak for myself. So they're just fine with me. I guess I can say it like this. They fried chicken!
To catch past episodes, visit us on the web at youtube.com/BRIC TV. Bye now.